Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Khaled Fadda. I am a regional senior consultant for NetScout Arabic. Basically, I'm covering Middle East region. Since morning, we've been talking about exchange, peering, IPv6, IPv4, and all that stuff. And we talked a little bit about security. So we talked about BGP hijacking, we talked about DNS, some sort of topics about security. So basically, I'm going to shift you completely into security domain. And specifically, I'm going to talk about the cyber threat intel, or specifically the IOCs, indicator of compromise. So before we start with the IOC thing, So before we start with the IOC thing, let's have a look on the attack or the threat spectrum that we have today. So basically, we have two major types of attacks. We have attacks, we call them loud attacks or noisy attacks, which are attacks that you can feel in the network. Examples on this one like DDoS. And the attack surface for such type of attack is really huge. So the attack can take down your uplink or maybe core links, or maybe the router itself, or the firewall, or maybe a service inside your network. And we do have multiple types of this loud or noisy attack, like volumetric attacks. This is the most famous one, application layer attacks, and all that stuff. In the other side, we have quiet attacks. Attacks not targeting the availability. Attacks would like to keep your service up and running, but there's a different objective for that. The objective, it might be exfiltration, might be getting some sensitive information, or getting an escalated privilege or something like that. And the whole objective of the attacker in the quiet attacks is not to bring your attention at all. So we call them like attacks targeting your assets. So if we go back by time, oh, there's a delay here. So if we go back by time, in the early days, attacks were very simple because the infrastructure itself was very simple. Even the amount of services, applications that we had at that time, not that much. So at that time, detecting an attack and doing the mitigation was very simple. So we know the source, we know the destination, we are expecting some sort of traffic, certain traffic, so we can do the protection. But these days, attacks are being very complex. We do have multiple directions. We do have, I would say, almost no parameters on the network. So we have remote users, we have cloud, we have our own data centers, we are connected almost everywhere. We have IoTs, we have smartphones, so everything is complicated now. Even the applications that we are using is really much than the early days. So that means we have a lot of blind spots. So I'm just trying to compare, or simulate that today's attack with a big truck. In the big truck, we have a lot of blind spots, not like a small car. In the small car, just all what you need to discover the blind spot is just only moving your head on top of your shoulder to the left or to the right to see who's next to you. But in this case, no, the case is really different. So we do have to have multiple techniques in order to find that blind spot. If we talk about loud attacks or the noisy attacks, which is basically the DDoS, so we see as well an evolution in this. So in the early days, 2000, I would say 2002, the largest size of the attack was around 2 gig only. But now we are talking about the Tera era for the DDoS attacks. So 7 months ago, we got the MENOG attack, which is 1.7 Tera that targeted one of the service providers in the US. So in terms of amount of DDoS attacks, it's increasing year after year. And the interesting thing, this MENOG attack, it was a new technique, was not used at all before. And we see as well a new trend for the DDoS attacks coming from botnets. One of the famous botnets that used for DDoS attacks, like the Mirai botnet, with 500,000 IoT devices connected to the internet. The other thing that the frequency of the DDoS attack is increasing as well, plus the complexity. Okay. So the interesting thing today as well if we need to analyze the stages that every attacker needs to go through to conduct an attack, he has to go through multiple steps, starting from reconnaissance or scanning, which means the attacker has to select his target, has to gather some information from his target. Who's that guy, his email address, what he's using in terms of, let's say, equipment. Is he connected on the smartphone or is it a laptop? What is it exactly? Then he's going to start preparing tools called weaponization. Then he's going to inject that tool. He's going to do some time lateral movement. So today's the attackers, they don't target the objective directly. Maybe the object is going to be a server, but he's going to do the penetration via, let's say, a printer or anything connected inside the organization. And from that device, he's going to do the lateral movement inside the network. And then he's going to establish the backdoor, the command and control. And after establishing the backdoor or that channel, he's going to achieve his objective. The problem that we see today that this type of attack has to be quiet. So the attacker doesn't need to bring the attention of the network or the security admin. So we see now a new trend that they're going to start with a DDoS attack. It's a loud, noisy attack, which means the attacker is trying to get your attention as a network admin or a security admin. And in parallel, he's going to do that quiet attack. He's going to inject the tools, he's going to establish the backdoor, and he's going to do that exfiltration. So because of this evolution, we see a lot of security components in the network. Look at this chart. We do have a lot of security devices. Everybody is trying to address a specific piece from that puzzle. But the problem is that it's crowded and it's complex. So the result, we're still getting breached. We still have attacks, even that we have all of that security elements in the network. That's why now everyone is thinking to go with new approach. And basically, the approach that everybody is trying to follow based on 4 main pillars. So the first one is the consolidation. Today, we cannot live, I would say, using silos of products. I cannot have just only a firewall or a standalone IPS without any consolidation. That's going to do a lot of impact on the network, either from troubleshooting-wise or from latency or issues in the network. The other pillar is the integration. So if we have multiple components in the network, so I have to have integration even with the third parties, maybe for logging system or maybe for monitoring system, analysis tool, etc. This is something essential that we need to have. And the third pillar is simplification. If I need to complicate things, that means I will not be able to troubleshoot well. That means I'm going to give the attacker a chance to do an attack on the network. So I need to simplify things even. And the fourth one, which is a very important, which is the automation. If we need just only to rely on the manual mitigation or troubleshooting, that means we will not be able to be effective in this protection. So, going back to attacks, basically how the attack starts. Basically, it starts from a vulnerability in the software. So what is the vulnerability in the software? It's a bug. So how the attacker is going to use that bug or that vulnerability? We have 2 things. Either we do a DDoS attack using that vulnerability, or we do exploitation. If we take the exploitation, we have 2 types of attacks, or quiet attacks specifically. So we have attacks, we call them unknown attacks, which is basically the 0-day attacks, which means an attack that has not been seen before by anyone. And we have well-known attacks. The attack is already discovered by someone else. It could be the vendor himself, or it could be a specific organization or a researcher or anyone else. So I will not talk about unknown attacks because it's a completely different topic and it needs a lot of techniques and a lot of products like sandboxing, static analysis, dynamic analysis, and all that stuff. I'm going to just only focus on the well-known attacks. So to protect ourselves from well-known attacks, we have a lot of components that we need to use in the network, such as firewalls, IPSs, IDSs, signature-based. We have multiple types of signatures like snort signatures, row signatures, Yara signatures. We do have a lot of techniques to write a signature. One of these techniques is called IOC, or indicator of compromise, and this is going to be our focus here. So what is indicator of compromise? Basically, indicators, we have it in every single day in our life. If you go to your car and switch the engine, you might get check engine. This is an indicator that there's something wrong in your car, right? If you go to the washing machine and just saw the washing machine, there might be an issue in the washing machine saying, oh, this is error number 15 as an example. This is an indicator that you have an issue. So we do have the same in the computer forensics. So if we have an intrusion happen on the network or on the operating system, we have indicators for that. So that indicator might be a URL. It might be a signature, virus signature. It might be a malware. It might be an MD5. It might be a DNS or a domain. So anything could be an indicator for that compromise. Have you seen this email before? I'm pretty sure yes, everyone. This is a phishing email. This is a spam email, right? You get an email like this saying, hey, your account has been accessed, let's say, somewhere in the world, in China, in a Windows 10 machine as an example, so please update your credentials. Anyone try to follow this link? What's going to happen if you click on that link? Basically, this is a phishing attack. And that URL that you see, it can be considered an IOC. So today's, we have a session, the BOF session, I believe it's going to be at 4 p.m. I'm going to talk about IOCs. I'm going to do a demo for this type of attack. So I'm going to send a phishing email like this one. I'm going to click on the link, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen. This is basically credential harvesting attack, which means you're going to open the website, you're going to put your credentials, you're going to do login, but you will not notice anything. What's going to happen that the attacker already captured your credentials. So I'm going to demo this one. If you're interested to talk about IOCs and all that stuff, just come on that. So how we can use the IOCs? As we said, the IOC could be anything. So if we have, let's say, an unusual outbound connection, like a malware infected your network or one of the PCs and is trying to establish a command and control channel, I can block that one because I have an IOC for that one. One famous thing, as an example, like the ransomware. If you have a ransomware and the ransomware is trying to get, the encryption key if he needs to pay to the attacker, he's contacting one of the command and control servers. I can block that communication. I can know there's somebody already impacted with that ransomware. I can block anything basically. Same thing can be used for DNS queries, for database search, etc. So the question is, well, I have all of these IOCs. So how can I control the IOCs? How can I, let's say, populate these IOCs or share the IOCs with others? So the answer is, we have a protocol called stick syntax. Okay? I don't know if you heard about this one or not, but basically the sticks is the structure that we need to follow in order to write the IOC. IOC basically is a very simple one. Says, okay, I have some certain fields. Let's say this IOC is going to talk about a malicious URL or a malicious IP or a malicious domain. Okay? And the taxi is the protocol to share that IOC with any product, with any security device that you have in the network, because that's a post-Stix taxi. To give you a brief, the Stix is an open source tool, or open source, I would say, structure. It's based on JSON format, okay? It has basically two things. It has inside it a domain object, we call them SDOs, and we have relationship objects. For the domain objects, we have 12 domains in Stix.2, or 2.0, sorry. And basically it talks about specific attributes, specific fields about that threat. Like, what is this indicator? Is it an URL? Is it an IP? Is it a hash? What is it exactly? Who's behind it, this attack? Is there any campaign? What kind of tools that we are suggesting, okay, to block such kind of threat? So we do have multiple of domains that can be used. And the nice thing that we have a relationship now between the IOCs, because we talked about the 4 pillars. One of them is the integration and the consolidation. So if I have, let's say, multiple IOCs without any connection, that's going to be useless. So today, I have something called SROs, which means relationship objects. So I can link the IOCs all together. So if I have, let's say, a malicious URL, okay, so I can link that URL to a specific malware. So I have some kind of relationship. How can I get benefit from this one? When I do threat hunting and threat analysis, so I can figure out the connected IOCs that are related to each other. So if we talk about the taxi, the protocol that is used to exchange the IOCs, basically it uses HTTPS, and it's basically a RESTful API, based on RESTful API. I don't need to go into the details. This is the link, so you can follow and you can read about it. If you're interested, as I said, you can come to the bar. So this is an example about IOCs. Basically, in this slide, you can see two IOCs, but they are linked to each other. So the first one, which is the blue one, is the indicator. If you read the indicator, you're going to see that we have URL. It's a malicious URL. Somebody is trying to contact that URL. It's opening the backdoor or the command and control channel with that URL. And it is connected to a malware. So we have a file or we have a malware says it's remote access Trojan. So if we have that malware, that means that malware is going to open that URL. So this is kind of the relationship between the indicator and the malware itself. And basically inside the IOC as well, you can see some kind of description, like that malware is part of that attack kill chain because we have multiple steps, as I said, from reconnaissance until we achieve the target. So it says, okay, that malware is going to be in that kill chain stage. So that's about the sticks and taxi. So how we can control the distribution. So we do have a protocol, we call it traffic light protocol. Basically, it's a protocol based on 4 colors. So we can give every IOC a color. So if we say it's red, that means it's not for disclosure, or it's very restricted to participants only, because it includes a very sensitive information. If it is amber, that means it's less sensitive, but I cannot disclose it to everyone. But it could be for participants and specific organizations. If we go to the green one, that means it could be for community, and the white one could be for anyone. So where we can find the IOCs? IOCs exist in IOC repositories. What is the IOC repository? It's basically looks like a treasure chest with the golden nuggets. What is the golden nuggets? The IOC itself. And we do have multiple of IOC repositories. We have open source free IOCs like Hail Taxi, Limo, and we have paid IOCs like Talos, ET Pro, and all that stuff. So how can I connect all the pieces together? So this is the ecosystem. This is what everybody is trying to follow these days. IOCs in the past were just only for analysis, just only for doing threat hunting, but the action or the protection was very manual. Today we do have new components into this ecosystem. So in the top, we have the IOCs repositories. So we have the Sticks Taxi IOCs, we have other format IOCs, and on the bottom we have the security devices in the network, IPSs, next generation firewalls, some solutions, endpoints, etc. So today we have a new platform, we call it TEP solution, or Threat Intel platform. I don't know if you heard about this term or not. But basically, this TEP solution does three things. First of all, collection, pulling the IOCs from the IOC repositories, then managing everything, standardizing everything, and then doing the integration, pushing the IOCs to your security components. Examples on TEP solutions, we have commercial TEP solutions like Soltra Edge. Soltra Edge can act as a TEP client and TEP server, which means you can even write your IOC on top of it. Anomaly, there's a free version from it. You can download it, you can use it. I'm going to use the Anomaly in the demo in today's session. There's Electric IQ or CABI, and we have too many TEP solutions. Some of them free of charge or open source, and some of them commercial. This is the dashboard from Anomaly. This is the dashboard from a Threat Intel platform. As you can see, we have a lot of IOCs already downloaded. So you can do some sort of analysis. You can select which IOCs you are interested in. You can select that IOCs. You can push the IOCs to your security components, and you can do that protection. So if we have a look now on the security stack and the network. So we said we have firewalls, we have IPSs, sandboxing, endpoints, etc. And now we have a new element, which is the IOC. So as you can see here, on the right, we have the Cyber Threat Intelligence, IOCs repositories, and we have the TEP solution that collects everything. Up to this point, this is just only for analysis. Now, if I find something interesting, I need to block it. The legacy ways were just only pushing the IOCs to the legacy components, or I would say the existing security devices like firewalls. But the firewalls, IPSs, all of them, they work on stateful technology, which means amount of IOCs that you can put on that firewall or that IPS is somehow limited because of that stateful technique. So if you have a list of, let's say, bad IP addresses, maybe you're going to get that bad IP address from regulator or from anyone else saying, okay, you need to block all of these IPs. If you go and put them on the firewall or maybe on the router, you have a limitation on that one. So we have now a new component coming up, which is called TIG, Threat Intel Gateway. Threat Intel Gateway is something new that everybody now started to use it. Basically, TIG solution is a stateless device that you can push a lot of IOCs, up to 2 million, 3 million, 5 million IOCs. And basically, it doesn't need to be inside your network. It could be on the perimeter. So I can reduce the noise on the firewall, on the IPS. I don't need to, let's say, bother that devices with such well-known attacks because we are talking about IOCs, and IOCs already has been discovered by someone else. So what I'm going to do in the BOF, basically, I built this lab. Okay, in that lab, you're going to see a TEP solution. I'm going to use Anomaly Stacks client. I have IOCs coming from two sources, from Anomaly Limo and Hail Taxi. I'm going to show you how you can get the IOCs, how to search on high-quality IOCs in order to do protection. Then we have a tech solution. The tech solution is based on Arbor AED, Arbor Edge Defense. And I have an attacker based on Linux, and I have a victim. I'm going to conduct a phishing attack with that fake URL. I'm going to do the attack without TIG, just to tell you what's going to happen with that phishing attack exactly, how we're going to capture the credentials. And then I'm going to deploy the IOC to block such type of attack. So that's it for now. Any question on this?
I think it's better if we skip questions for now. It's already lunchtime.
Okay.
We can have questions during the demo session at 4 p.m. today. That would be better, I think. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Khaled.